Imagine, for a second, holding a creature in your lap that looks, well, absolutely identical to a miniature jungle leopard.
Ugh.
Like, it plays fetch with the sheer enthusiasm of a golden retriever, and it was quite literally genetically engineered in the 1980s.
Right, which is just wild to think about.
It is. Or, picture a cat that is completely bald, radiating heat like a tiny little radiator,
Yeah.
and demanding to be velcroed to your side at all times. Today, we are completely tearing up the idea of the quote-unquote standard issue house cat.
Yeah, because it is so easy, to just look at a cat and see a pet. But every single feline roaming around a living room today it's a walking masterpiece of history, geography, and some truly wild genetics.
Absolutely. So welcome to today's deep dive. If you're listening to this, you probably already know that cats are wildly popular. But we are taking a stack of notes based on this brilliant article by Sharon Hafuda from COTS.com. It's titled 11 Beautiful Cat Breeds That Redefine Adorable, and we're going to look way beneath the fur.
Way beneath it.
Yeah, our mission here is to shortcut your journey to being a deeply well-informed feline enthusiast. We're exploring that incredible intersection where breathtaking aesthetic beauty meets highly specific and, honestly, sometimes bizarre personality quirks.
Exactly. Because when you actually examine the sheer diversity of feline companions, you realize that humans and nature they've collaborated to create a perfect match for literally every lifestyle.
For sure.
We are moving far beyond just a simple list of breeds here. We're going to unpack the underlying logic, like the mechanisms, the evolutionary survival traits, and the deliberate genetic choices that make these cats exactly who they are.
Right. So as we explore these wildly different temperaments today, I really want you to think about what type of companion actually fits your life. Because to understand the modern cat, we kind of have to start by looking at the weight of ancient history.
Oh, absolutely.
Long before humans were meticulously breeding animals in catteries, to create designer traits, isolated geography was already producing some of the most stunning creatures on the planet. And you really cannot talk about feline antiquity without talking about the Persian.
No, you can't. The Persian truly anchors the history of domestic cats. Based on the source material we're looking at, this lineage traces all the way back to the region of Persia and Iran.
Wow.
Yeah, potentially dating as far back as the 1600s. And that isolated ancient origin, it's crucial to understanding their behavior today.
That timeline is just staggering to me, the 1600s. And yet they didn't even make their way into Western popularity until, the end of the 19th century?
Right, exactly.
When you picture a Persian, the immediate image is always this immense, glamorous cloud of fluff, and that super distinctive flat face. But Hafuda notes there's this formidable intellect operating right beneath that coat. They're actually recognized as one of the most intelligent cat breeds, completely capable of being trained.
Yeah, and that intelligence manifests in a very highly discerning temperament. Because they are this ancient breed, they haven't been subjected to the same chaotic, rapid-fire genetic mixing that characterizes some of the newer, highly active breeds.
Right.
They process their environment with this quiet calculation. Like, they are incredibly selective about their socialization. They usually choose to bond deeply with their immediate family and maybe a few trusted friends.
Just a few.
Yeah, while completely ignoring the chaos of the outside world.
So they are essentially the feline equivalent of like an introverted old money aristocrat who only invites a few close confidants to a very quiet, exclusive tea party.
That is a perfect way to put it.
They simply do not want chaos. The notes emphasize they are built for quiet homes where, not much changes.
Right, and contrast that indoor aristocratic refinement with a breed shaped by the brutal realities of the outdoors. The Egyptian Mau.
Oh, man. The Mau.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is that the Persian's dense fluff was heavily popularized by human preference over centuries, right? But the Egyptian Mau's breathtaking aesthetic is a direct legacy of natural evolutionary pressure.
And the Egyptian Mau is an absolute showstopper. Hafuda points out something that completely blew my mind when I read it. This exotic-looking feline is the only naturally spotted breed of domestic cat in existence.
Yep. The word naturally is the hinge upon which their entire history swings, really.
Wait, so other spotted cats aren't natural?
Well, most spots or striking patterns you see in domestic cats today, they were engineered by modern breeders intentionally splicing different genetic lines together. But the Egyptian mouse spots evolved organically. They carry these small or large spots that can be round, oblong, or just irregular.
That is wild.
Yeah.
And it isn't just the spots either. It's the combination of these hyper-specific ancient markers. Like they have the classic M frown mark etched right onto their forehead.
Right, the tabby.
Yeah. and a dark dorsal stripe running perfectly down their spine,
Oh.
a banded tail with a dark tip, and this mixture of spots and stripes on their haunches. It's it's like they're wearing a biological map of antiquity.
They really are.
And the eyes. The breed standard specifically refers to their eye color as gooseberry green.
Gooseberry green, yeah. And the biological mechanism driving all of that aesthetic is pure survival. I mean, in the wild, spots and stripes provide the ultimate camouflage.
Right, to blend in.
Exactly. It's structural protection designed to break up the animal's silhouette in dappled sunlight and tall grass. So when you look at an Egyptian Mao, you're witnessing an ancient, highly effective survival mechanism that just happens to translate into breathtaking beauty in the living room.
And that slightly wild, cautious history,
Yeah.
it bleeds directly into their personality, right?
Yeah.
The article notes they're very friendly and devoted to their own humans, but they can be intensely shy with newcomers.
Oh, absolutely.
Like they're not the type of cat to just run up and greet a stranger at the front door.
No, because caution is the ultimate survival trait. A cat shaped by a harsh, natural environment learns very quickly that unfamiliar variables are dangerous. So their hesitation isn't aloofness, you know. It is a deeply ingrained genetic intelligence.
That makes a lot of sense. And that concept of survival brings up a really fascinating pivot for us. Because if the Persian is the ancient aristocrat and the Mao is the ancient survivor, there is an entirely different category of cats. Cats whose physical bodies were forged by literal blue-collar labor.
Ah, yes.
The physical traits of these next breeds weren't just for show. They were a matter of life and death, serving as pest control alongside human expansion.
Right, we are looking at the working class heroes here, the American Shorthair and the British Shorthair.
Let's look at the American Shorthair first. If you're listening to this, you might be picturing just a standard everyday house cat. And honestly, I had the exact same thought. Are American Shorthairs just regular cats? But their history is a wild ride.
It really is. The source highlights a phenomenal geographical reality. There are no indigenous cat breeds in the Americas.
None at all.
Zero. Every single domestic feline on the continent can trace its ancestry back to ships crossing the ocean with European settlers.
Wow. And they were drafted as maritime pest control. They had this vital job protecting the food stores on those ships. And when they hit dry land, the work didn't stop, right? They transitioned immediately to catching mice on farms and in early settlements. Hafuda notes that their development was purely driven by natural selection.
Yeah, it's a textbook example of survival of the fittest acting as a genetic bottleneck.
Only the strong survive.
Exactly. Only the pats with the strongest immune systems, the thickest muscle mass, and the keenest hunting instincts could survive the elements and secure enough food to reproduce. And that harsh environmental filter ensured that a robust, hardy tabby gene was passed down.
So while you can find them in solid colors or bicolors or tortoiseshell, those classic distinct stripes are essentially the genetic receipts of a cat built to blend into the brush and hunt. The American Shorthair is basically the rugged, self-made frontiersman of the cat world. But then you cross the Atlantic and you find their cousin, the British Shorthair. And they project an entirely different energy.
Oh, completely different vibe. The British Shorthair developed in the United Kingdom, and for a long time, the dominant genetic expression was a very specific gray coloration. It was so prevalent that the breed was originally just categorized as the British Blue.
Right. And today, I know they come in a massive rainbow of colors, solid blue, blue tabby, silver tabby, bicolor, but that foundational gray remains iconic. But it's the physical architecture of this cat that stops you in your tracks.
Oh, for sure. They are built like brick houses.
They really are. They have a short but incredibly dense single coat. And their facial structure features these round cheeks, a moderately flat, very round face, and large round eyes set far apart. The article specifically describes it as giving them a distinctively human expression.
Which can be a little unsettling, but very charming. And the biological logic behind that dense single coat is a direct response to the climate of the British Isles.
Because of the rain.
Exactly. Like the American Shorthair, they were working mousers. But the damp, perpetually cold environment of the UK required a completely different type of biological armor. The extreme density of their fur acts as insulation against the wet and the cold.
And their temperament is equally comforting. They are super laid back, highly affectionate, and they easily integrate with kids and friendly dogs. If the American Shorthair is the hardened pioneer, the British Shorthair is like a cozy, robust pub landlord who just oversees the household with a calm, human-like expression.
That is a brilliant analogy.
Thanks.
And up to this point, we have seen how geography, climate, and occupation sculpt a feline. But the narrative changes entirely when human beings decide to bypass natural selection and take direct control of the genetic steering wheel.
Oh, yeah. This is where we get into the realm of the design companion. What happens when breeders decide to prioritize aesthetics and a hyper-affectionate temperament over literally everything else? Well, you get the ragdoll.
Yes. The ragdoll represents a profound shift in feline behavioral genetics.
Okay, let's unpack this because they are visually stunning. They're these large cats weighing anywhere from 10 to 20 pounds, wrapped in a silky, semi-long coat, staring at you with vivid, piercing blue eyes.
Beautiful cats.
But their namesake quirk is what truly sets them apart. The article notes they have a biological tendency to completely relax and go entirely limp, literally like a child's ragdoll, the moment you pick him up.
Which is so unusual. The mechanics of that limpness are fascinating. In almost all feline lineages, the startle reflex and muscular tension are deeply embedded.
Right, they're always ready to jump.
Exactly. A cat is always subconsciously prepared to spring away from danger. So to breed a cat that goes entirely limp means breeders successfully isolated and amplified traits of overwhelming thirst, calmness, and tolerance. They effectively suppress that ancient fight-or-flight muscular readiness.
That is incredible. They are the ultimate zero-anxiety family lab cat. Now, visually, Hafuda mentions they come in pointed patterns like color point, bicolor, mitted in shades like seal, blue, chocolate, lilac, red, and cream. And this pointed coloration shows up constantly in designer breeds.
It does. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that pointed coloration acts as a genetic building block, and it is a direct inheritance from the Siamese breed.
Ah, the Siamese.
Yep. The Siamese lineage was frequently utilized by breeders to impart both a specific color distribution and a deeply human-oriented personality into new breeds.
The best way I can visualize color pointing for you listening is to imagine a cat wearing a darker, expertly tailored suit, but only on its extremities.
Oh, I like that.
The main core of the body is light-colored, but they have these stark, darker points of color localized entirely on their face, ears, legs, and tail.
It is a really striking visual expression, and you see it utilized heavily in the creation of the Himalayan.
Right. And the Himalayan is essentially the result of taking the tailored suit of the Siamese and putting it on that fluffy aristocrat we talked about earlier, the Persian. Breeders deliberately crossed Siamese cats with Persians. The result is a cat that always has blue eyes and that striking pointed coloration.
And the classification of the Himalayan actually causes a bit of friction in the official feline registries.
Oh, really?
Some cat drama.
A little bit. The International Cat Association, TICA, recognizes the Himalayan as an entirely separate, distinct breed. But the Cat Fanciers Association, the CFA, looks at the genetics and considers them merely a color division of the Persian.
Wow. Well, regardless of the cat politics going on behind the scenes, the Himalayan successfully inherited the Persian's loving, laid-back, lap cat temperament. And another breed that owes a massive genetic debt to the Siamese is the Burmese.
Yes, the Burmese is a master class in isolating a different set of traits from that exact same Siamese ancestry. Breeders focused on a very specific color palette, resulting in 4 distinct inherited expressions.
Yeah. You've got sable, which is a warm, rich brown, champagne, a delicate honey beige, blue, a medium gray, and platinum, a pale gray.
But unlike the fluffy Persian or the silky ragdoll, the Burmese coat is a completely different sensory experience. It requires almost zero grooming because it is intensely short, sleek, and possesses this fine, glossy, satiny texture.
Almost like a panther.
Exactly. And their personality, hyper people-oriented. When you look at the ragdoll, the Himalayan, and the Burmese, you see human ingenuity successfully marrying hyper-specific aesthetic desires with incredibly docile, loving temperaments.
Right. But human intervention doesn't just refine what is already there. Occasionally, nature throws a massive genetic misfire into the mix, and instead of correcting it, humans decide to capitalize on the anomaly.
This brings us to a cat that flips the entire script on what a feline is supposed to be. We just spent all this time marveling at dense fluff, silky coats, and glossy satin finishes. What happens when a genetic mutation results in absolutely no coat at all?
Well, you get the Sphinx.
Hailing from Canada, which is deeply ironic for a cat with zero winter insulation.
So true.
They are completely hairless, characterized by incredibly large ears. And the article clarifies that the initial hairlessness was a random genetic mutation, but the breed itself was meticulously developed through selective breeding to maintain and stabilize that exact trait.
And if you are listening to this right now, you are probably asking the exact same logical question that anyone asks when they see a bald cat from a cold climate.
Right, like, If they have no fur, aren't they just constantly freezing?
Yeah.
How do they survive daily life?
Well, the behavioral adaptation to that physical vulnerability is brilliant.
Their lack of fur is the exact biological mechanism that dictates their personality. The article explicitly calls them velcro cats because they physically stick to their humans. They love to curl up in your lap, they're overwhelmingly affectionate, and they are doing it because they are systematically stealing your body heat.
Exactly. It perfectly illustrates how a physical anomaly drives behavior. Their metabolic need for external warmth forces this intense physical closeness with their owners. It transforms them into the ultimate indoor companion out of sheer biological necessity.
It's so funny.
And the source also notes they are highly intelligent and curious, often acting as the household welcome committee when guests arrive.
They're essentially running up to the front door to see if the new people radiate a higher core temperature.
That's entirely possible.
So if the Sphinx represents the ultimate heat-seeking indoor oddity, our final group of felines represents the exact opposite impulse. This is the modern desire to bring the raw, untamed aesthetics of the wild jungle directly into a suburban living room, without the actual danger of a wild animal.
We are entering the realm of the wild hybrids, specifically the Bengal and the Savannah.
Let's start with the Bengal, because the engineering here is staggering. Created in the 1980s, breeders physically crossed domestic cats with the wild Asian leopard cat.
Right, and the goal there was to mix two entirely different operating systems. Breeders wanted to keep the striking exotic hardware of the wild Asian leopard cat while installing the predictable, manageable domestic software of a house cat.
And visually, the hardware is unparalleled. They are the only domestic breed that features rosettes.
The rosettes are the spotted markings identical to what you see on a wild jaguar or leopard.
It's so cool.
And the breed standard is rigorous.
These rosettes preferably have two distinct colors or shades within them.
Yeah.
They manifest in highly specific shapes, paw prints, arrowheads, or even full donuts and half donuts.
A domestic cat with donut-shaped leopard spots. It is incredible. But here's where it gets really interesting. Beyond the spots, they have a structural coloration trait called glitter hair.
Yes.
The article describes it as a special type of hair that literally reflects light, making the cat look as though it has been dusted with actual glitter. But this is where we have to evaluate that software upgrade we mentioned. Unlike the ragdoll, whose biology was manipulated to suppress tension and go limp, the Bengal inherited a massive reservoir of energy from its wild ancestors.
The notes are very clear on this.
Yeah.
They are highly active, deeply curious, and extremely vocal meanings. They will meow loudly and constantly to communicate their needs.
Very demanding.
Yeah, they require intense engagement and mental stimulation. You cannot just leave a Bengal alone in a small apartment for 12 hours a day and expect a peaceful home. Which brings us to the Savannah cat. If the Bengal has the Asian leopard cat in its DNA, the Savannah is a direct mix of a domestic cat and a wild African serval.
And the serval genetics dominate their physical architecture. They inherited these massive radar-like ears directly from the serval, paired with a very slender, elongated, and elegant build covered in striking spots.
The Savannah is fascinating to me because their intelligence translates into behavior you usually associate with dogs.
Right.
They actively play fetch. They can be trained to walk on leashes. They learn complex tricks. My favorite way to describe the Savannah is that it is like having a highly intelligent golden retriever trapped inside the body of an exotic supermodel cat.
That perfectly captures the trade-off of hybrid breeding. Breeders successfully isolated the jaw-dropping aesthetic of the African serval alongside a temperament that is safe for human interaction. But you are still bringing a piece of the wild indoors.
Definitely.
You are getting a high-energy, hyper-intelligent companion that demands an active lifestyle from its owner.
Well, we have covered massive ground today. We trace the quiet, calculating intelligence of the ancient Persian all the way back in 1600s Iran. We tracked the survival of the fittest that produced the robust American Shorthair on the decks of European ships.
Incredible journeys.
And we saw how human ingenuity manipulated genetics to give us ragdolls that go limp and hairless Sphinx cats that steal our body heat, all the way up to walking a dog-like Savannah cat on a leash.
So what does this all mean? I think it highlights the unparalleled adaptability of the feline species. Whether a cat's physical form was forged by the freezing, damp environment of the British Isles or, meticulously engineered over decades to replicate a jungle predator, these diverse traits emphasize our enduring desire to bond with them.
Yeah.
There truly is a biological and temperamental match for every conceivable human lifestyle.
It is absolute proof that the standard issue cat is just a myth. But I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We have seen how selective breeding and natural mutations can produce felines that sparkle with light-reflecting glitter hair, wear tailored color-pointed suits, and play fetch on command. If all of those incredible traits were isolated from feline DNA, what wild, dormant superpowers might still be hiding in the genetics of the everyday stray cat sitting outside your window right now?
Oh, wow. It really makes you look at the cat sleeping on your sofa in an entirely new light.
It really does. There's a lot of hidden history in every purr. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Catch you next time.